What's shaking, guys? My name is Luke Dancy, and we are here today to bring you a very special live Q&A with someone I've had a chance to get to know over the last few months now, and we have a very exciting thing to talk about. I'm talking about Mr. Lance Miller and his Fox Targets playing cards. This is a deck of cards he designed for us a little while back, and we are so excited to finally bring them to fruition and to have them ready for you to pick up from your favorite Magic dealers. This is going to be a lot of fun today as well for me because yes, I do a lot of live shows for you guys, and there's one question that comes up a lot that unfortunately I don't have the answer to, and that is, Luke, can you tell us about how to design a deck of cards? Luke, how do you do it? How hard is it? I don't know, but I can guarantee you Lance Miller has those answers that you've been looking for. So it's going to be a lot of fun to talk about playing card design too, and I'm expecting to learn a thing or two myself today. So welcome all my friends to today's show. Again, we do these live shows all the time. We try to bring on guests. Sometimes we feature you guys and your magic, but today, again, we do have a very special guest, Mr. Lance Miller. And if you haven't seen this deck yet, I'm going to pull a few images up on the screen for you. This is the front of the tuck. Beautiful design here. Here is the back of the tuck. Really like that design a lot. I like what's going on there. A lot of people ask, is that the back of the cards too? It's actually not. This is a good look at the back of the cards here. I'm really digging the color on that. I'm going to ask Lance about that. I'm curious about how that came to light there. I like it. We're also looking at the Joker here. That is a fun one. Joker's and another popular card, of course, you guys want to see. Good old Ace of Spades. There it is, flying in for you. And we'll give you a look at one of the court cards, too, popping up right now. That is the King right there. You can see I really like this type of illustration that Lance has done. Can't wait to talk more about it. And can't wait to grab all of your questions along the way. So if you are watching out there over on Facebook or YouTube, post those comments and questions in the comment section. I can pull them up on the screen. We can get as many of those answered today from Lance as possible. But up first, we are going to show you the trailer for the Fox Targets if you haven't seen them yet. It gives you a better look at the cards in action and also just a closer look at them in general. When we do come back, we will have Lance Miller with me to talk all about this beautiful new deck of cards. All right, so hang tight. We will be right back.
The best things aren't always flashy or glossy. They're simply the things that speak to you. They're the things that draw you forward. That give your actions purpose. They're the things that inspire you. All you have to do is know where to look.
All right, my friends, and welcome back. As you can see now, Lance, you've got the look. You've got the look. Love it. Welcome to the show, my friend.
How's it going?
It's going really good, and I want to say a big thank you for coming on and joining us to talk about this. I know a lot of people are very excited to talk to you, not only about the Fox Targets, but also just about the world of playing card design in general, because it's a very popular thing out there. And you have quite a bit of experience with that. So thank you for coming on today. Yeah.
I'm excited. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, Lance. So, of course, we're going to get into all the details on the Fox Targets and all that other stuff. But to give the guys that this is your first time maybe appearing on their screen, or maybe they've heard about you, can you give the guys a little background about who you are and what you do and all that good stuff, a little bio for you?
Yeah. So I started learning Magic when I was about 7 years old. My brother actually used to work at a magic store, and he would bring home effects and teach me different things as a child. And I just kind of quickly grasped onto it and fell in love. From that day forward, I've always had a deck of cards in my pocket. So as a teenager, I started working with a traveling clown, working kids' parties, doing magic for them. That was a heck of an experience. I learned that my magic was way too advanced for a lot of those little kids' parties. Did some casino gambling nights for corporate events and things like that. and eventually grew to understand that I needed to pick a direction in my life, whether I was going to go into art or whether I was going to go into magic. And as I'm often want to say, hopefully my choice, my demonstration, it speaks for itself. I chose to follow art, and I ended up coming back around to playing cards in the most unusual of ways. I was designing myself a business card that would help me stand out in the industry.
Cool.
And I was working with a recruiter, and they said, hey, you need to do a card that speaks to who you are, and a resume that speaks to who you are. So I did a resume that was all like Scrabble looking, because I'm a wordsmith and love to play with words. Yeah. And I did a business card that was a playing card. And I printed them up. I talked to my wife. We took our last $700 and got them printed. I got 1,852 cards printed, and that year turned that $700 into $7,000.
Oh, wow.
And ever since then, it's just been on an upscale. And so I'm very blessed to be in this industry and to kind of have fallen into it, for lack of better words.
Cool. I love it. And so I know that most of your background comes from the quote-unquote real world of design. You've done a lot of work, and you're continuing to do a lot of work. I don't want to, let that get, I want to make sure that's noticed, because you are doing some really fun things out in the design world. I know you're designing some games. You're doing some stuff with games and stuff, the artwork for some games. And are there some other projects, too, that I'm missing? I know last time we talked, it was more about that, but...
Yeah, so, typically I do fantasy art illustration, as you can see back here. Okay. Demonstrate all of that work at a local game show called Origins Game Fair. In fact, I'll be there in July, June. And aside from that, board games and playing cards are predominant staples, but I've done everything from, brochures for restaurants to logos for Fortune 500 type companies and all kinds of different stuff, really. And it's all rooted in the foundations of solid design structure and skill and illustration. And I'm so versatile that I can work within any type of industry. And coming up soon, I might just be working on comics.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That'll be fun.
I'm pretty excited about that.
And can you give us an idea of how you shifted or transitioned into the design world, into starting to design playing cards, because it's a totally different monster, I would think,
Oh yeah, it's very eye-opening too, because I went to college for media arts and animation. I figured I was going to make video games. I was going to go out and conquer the world and create these awesome video games that everybody was going to play. Halfway through my college career, I decided, I despise having to work on 3D animation models, because there's no instant gratification, whereas I can sit down and draw and immediately my ideas come to life. And so the transition happened because I'd actually been talking with Jason Brumbelow since he's way back when he was at Illusionist. And we just started talking here and there, and I sent him one of my very first decks of cards, the Bicycle Gargoyles from 2010. And he was like, you know what, dude, this is really cool stuff. Keep in touch with me. And we had talked about some ideas and things to do, and some of those ideas presented themselves in some decks that you've seen on the market that didn't have my artwork. They certainly had my concepts. And I'm okay with that. That means I'm doing something right. I'm coming up with cool designs or concepts that people want to use, and they're running with them. And some of them were able to do it way, way before I was able to get to it. So, hey, kudos to them.
All right, fair enough. And then, so you've now ventured into the playing card world, you've done some stuff, and then you've now shifted over to, and I'm going to bring these up on the screen again because they are beautiful to look at, the Fox Targets. There's a really good story about these. I know I got the rundown. I know that we also have an interview of you and Jason Brumbelow I'm sure we'll be sharing in the near future, but can you give us a little bit of the history, the backstory of how these things came to be? Because these just weren't something that happened by themselves. There's some background and how you got into the Fox Targets project, and how it probably became part of your daily life for quite some time, right? I'm sure it did.
Yeah. Okay. So real quick. So Jason travels a lot, and he finds himself in some really interesting places. And one day he found himself in a vintage shop where you could buy antiques and things like that. And so he was stumbling along and he found a crate, and in this crate there were a bunch of vintage hunting targets. And he happened upon one that had a fox on it. And we did some research on it, and it was done in like 1925, somewhere in that era. And it was put out by Sears Roebuck, and they had a great concentric circle design in the center of the target. And that presents itself in this little portion of the deck right there, inside of the center of the fox. Now, again, not an exact copy, because you can't do that, right? You can't just go ripping people's stuff off. You have to take bits and pieces of it that you like and incorporate it, and come up with your own designs. So we did that. We took that single concentric thing, and we discovered that we really loved that single line weight style, and that was what gave us the lead-in to the hair, actually, for the kings. You can see those circles right there on the kings.
Yep.
And that was actually one of the very first cards that I sent Jason, that we locked onto the style, that single line weight style, and we're like, you know what, we're running with this. But this was a 2.5 year project, and that's because along the way we were working on 3 other decks of cards. Now, you've seen one of them, the At the Table decks. I can't talk about the other 2 because we're still under NDA on those.
Fair enough.
But all in all, we really dug in on this, and we went through probably 15 different iterations of court card styles, of the back of the deck itself, of the tuck box. I can't tell you how many drawings of this deck I have sitting around my house that went by the wayside. And that's okay. That's part of the process. But it really is important for us to demonstrate that to a lot of the consumers out there, because some people think you just jump into Photoshop, you hit a button for 15 minutes, and then bam, you have a deck of cards. In reality, it couldn't be any further from the truth. I mean, there are some out there that do have that mentality where they're just like, boom, let me pop in, throw a quick logo on there, not really do a whole lot of design work and or illustration. But this was hand illustrated. I sat down and drew every aspect of this, and then digitally remastered it to come up with the product that you see before you.
Cool. I love it. Yeah, I love the whole backstory of how the theme of these even came to be. I think that's a really nice thing for people to understand and to hear, because it does have meaning, and there's meaning to the name, and
absolutely,
and all that too. And there's a lot of really cool artwork going on the back of the tuck. I'm going to pull that up so the guys can see it again. But can you give us some little detail on, I know you mentioned a couple things here, but can you give us a little bit of a explanation of some of the extra symbols and things? Because there's a lot going on the back here, as people can see now.
Somebody asked me what they look like fanned out. I happen to have mixed cards first.
Nice.
Rick's mentioned or asked what do they look fanned out.
There you go.
I mean, they're pretty sweet, and I probably have one of the worst fans ever, so I apologize. Xavier Spade gets on me about this all the time. He's like, "Your Spade, your fan is terrible. What is wrong with you?" You lack style. Anyway, so I'm sorry. Could you repeat that question?
No, it's just when it comes to the back of the tuck, because in my eyes, and I mean it's hard not to see this, there's a lot of different design elements going into that. There's quite a few symbols and things going on the back here. I'm going to pull it up again on the screen so the guys can see. Can you give us some insight into what some of these actually represent or mean, whether to you or to the Fox Targets theme?
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of it is camping oriented. Things that you would encounter while you're out looking for a fox, of course. But there is a storyline, and that is that the fox is tricksy. So you're going to be out camping, right? And just as the sun is going out down behind the mountains, the foxes are going to be leaping around and bouncing between the trees, trying to hide from you, because it's probably the number one time that you would actually be able to see them. And during the day, they camouflage a lot into their environment and stuff like that. But during that kind of golden hour is just about when you'll be able to spot them.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
What about
and then symbols,
Yeah, those are the ones I want to know. Yeah, I'm going to pull the picture
are
up.
kind of different things that you'll encounter. You need fire in your heart. You need to have direction. You have to be courageous, but you have to also be willing to build a structure, to build a home, for your work, for your magic, for everything. Everything that's in this box or in the cards themselves means something. And we're not necessarily giving all of that information out. We want it to be what it means to you. And a lot of magicians can have different meanings for the symbols that you'll find on the court cards and things like that. But we threw so much in here that it could look random, but it's not. Every single thing was very, very, very directly thought out. And we probably went through hours of just theory behind what we wanted this deck to mean.
Nice. Love it. And can you go into some of the detail too when it comes to, I mean, you went through this, what did you call it again? The type of, the fine line, what is that called again? The type
it's single line weight illustration. So that means that every single line that you see is the same exact thickness as every other line. There is no difference in the thickness of any of the line. And so that actually relies heavily on now spacing and the design structure itself in order to convey without being too busy.
Okay. Gotcha. No, that's to me one of my favorite elements because it's like you see the design, but it's done in such a way that it's like it's got like the minimal type of look to it, but it's done in very classy style. Big fan of the court cards in particular.
Thank you.
And the Joker as well. I like the lines on the Jokers too. You guys can see the Joker there. Very, very nice stuff. So someone was asking before over on YouTube, I can't remember the actual person's name, but someone was asking about, again, what are some of the decks that you have designed? I know we can't talk about some of the upcoming stuff as well, but could you just remind the guys again, this is not Lance's only deck that he's designed. He's done quite a bit of work and he's got more coming too. But yeah, could you just kind of give that list again for the decks? Yeah.
Yeah, so I started out in 2009, actually, with the Gargoyles Expo deck. That was a deck that was given away at the Chicago Label Expo as a giveaway. And only 300 of those were ever sold to the public. The rest of them were given out as tchotchkes for people who attended the event.
Oh, cool.
Then Bicycle ended up picking it up, but it was run through Diavoli. They were my first, I guess, publisher, if you will. So they picked up the deck, ran it as a Bicycle product, sold it predominantly in Europe and Eastern countries. And then after that, I did the Actuator series. So you had the Artist Edition Actuators, which sold out. It was actually one of the very first full custom decks on Kickstarter back in 2011.
Oh, wow.
So well that it sold out, and we only printed 2,500 of them. They were individually signed and numbered, and it proved collectability in playing cards.
Nice.
Could be demonstrated through serial numbers and through a bunch of other stuff. Then that did so well that everybody was like, well, we want a black and white edition. And so I put 2 cards out there, and I said, okay, do you want this to be your black and white edition, or do you want this one? And one was a little bit lighter and one was a little bit darker. And they said, oh, what about both? So I lightened one, I darkened the other, and then you had the black edition and the white edition. Made 2 complete new editions from those. From then, of course, we did the At the Table decks. There are 2 as yet unnamed decks that will be coming out that I collaborated on. They're not my full product, but got a significant amount of my style and design work in there. And of course, now you've got the Fox targets. I'm trying to think if, other than that, I've consulted on a bunch of other decks with some of your favorite designers out there. But myself, I have 14 other decks of cards in some stage of process.
Wow, 14. I want to bring up a comment here. Again, if you guys have questions about playing card design or the Fox targets in particular, post those comments right now, whether you are over on Facebook or YouTube, and we can bring them here on the show. We are joined today by Lance Miller, the illustrator of the beautiful Fox Targets playing cards. We love these cards. There's a really nice comment over on Facebook that I want to pull up for you because I want to make sure you get the love as it comes in as well. My old buddy Daniel Ricks, he's out there watching. Daniel is saying, that tuck looks so smooth and such nice aesthetics. There's so much going on to like. I like how the mountains resemble pyramids. So yeah, I mean, again, the back of the box is definitely one of my favorite parts of the deck as well. It kind of takes you for surprise because you see the front, you go, okay, there's there's not a whole lot going on. Then you turn it over and it's like, whoa, hello there.
Yeah, it's very alarming to some people, and even me. This is such a departure from my typical style. My style is over the top, grandiose, full of detail. And so this was a huge challenge trying to keep that kind of simplicity and have it still have my voice, my kind of mentality behind it. And this is where Jason really challenged me to grow. He was like, dude, you very clearly know your design style. Let's learn some others. Let's try some different stuff. And so interestingly enough, we actually almost walked away from this project because we weren't hitting it. We nailed the design aesthetic on the other 3 decks, but when it came to this one, we weren't hitting it. And so we were, days away from walking away from it forever. And you would have just had, these nifty little kind of simple backs and standard court cards. And I looked at it and I told him, I was like, Jason, we can't do that to this deck. I was like, give me one more chance. And he's like, all right, you got one more chance. So I sent him that King of Spades, and he was like, okay, if you can make the rest of the deck look like this, we'll roll with it.
That's interesting. So why? Let me jump back in here then. So you mentioned the King of Spades specifically. Why that card? Why was that the card that you designed first? I
don't know. That's a great. A great question. Every time I sat down to work on the cards, actually, to start with, it had always been the King of Hearts. And for whatever reason, when I would draw out the King of Hearts, I kept thinking, the Suicide King kind of mentality. And I was like, well, if I can nail the King of Hearts, I'll have the answer to every other card in the deck. And I think it was just kind of one of those, when you've looked at something for so long, you have to step away from it. You have to view it again from an objective presence in order to get fresh eyes on it. And so I gave myself 2 days. I walked away from it completely. I came back and I said, all right, I'm doing an entirely opposite direction card. So I was doing the King of Hearts. Next, I'm doing the King of Spades. And so I did that one. I got all the elements in place that I wanted. And I handed it in, and he was like, yes, you nailed it. This is perfect.
Cool. Speaking specifically about the cards, an old friend of mine, Mr. Xavier Spade, what's up, Xavier? He says, you've got a question, why the light gray back and not something deeper or more vibrant? So yeah, that's a good question in general. I was going to ask you that as well. The backs are a very unique color, which I like, for the record. Why did you decide to go with something like that? I'm sure there's a reason for it somewhere.
There's a great answer. And first off, what's up, X? Thanks for showing up. Secondly, we went through probably about 8 different color schemes, and we were in the jewel tones. We were looking at some pastels and a bunch of different things, and we were looking at a lot of the colors that were prevalent in the market for the decks of playing cards, what was being released in fashion, in graphic design, a lot of other things. And I just stumbled across this tone of green that I was like, man, if I really play that down, it can come off as this like blue-gray, really, really subtle tone, but it still looks gorgeous when it's handled. It's nice and non-gender specific. I know there's a lot of that kind of going on right now, and I just wanted to be able to put something in anybody's hands that they can pick up and run with it and find an identity with it that doesn't tell you, oh, well, this is specifically a blue deck, or this is specifically an orange deck, or anything like that. So it's kind of got that blue-gray tone to just kind of challenge what everybody else has been doing. A lot of times you find what everybody else is doing and you run the opposite direction. And that's where you find success.
Cool. There's been a lot of questions, a lot of talk about the actual stock, the finish. Can you give us the specifics when it comes to the type of deck that they can expect to pick up? And maybe there's a deck that this feels like that they may be able to compare it to. But there's been a lot of questions about the specifics of the deck itself. I know I've got a deck here in my hands. I got to say it feels great. I know you got your shipment of cards over there as well. The guys haven't had a chance to yet because it is still on pre-order right now. But can you give us some details when it comes to the actual stock and finish on the cards too?
Sure. Yeah. It's Expert Playing Card Company. Which is different because every one of my decks to this point has been United States Playing Card Company. And it is a single crush stock. It's not the double crush stock. They didn't start doing the double crush until I think the Casino Cherries, or somebody else might have to fill me in on that one. But it's a single crush, and they handle fantastically. Just put up with a lot of beating, and I've been messing with them for weeks now. The first couple that I had, I destroyed because I carried them out into humid weather, and you don't want to do that necessarily, but that's any card, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's not immune to anything. I mean, humidity is going to get you no matter what kind of cards you got.
Right. But you treat your cards right, and they'll treat you right.
Yeah,
so.
Well said. Yeah, that was the biggest question for people. Was how do they handle? I mean, I've had them now open for a while. They feel great. They're smooth, and there's certain decks that I use like the Bees. They're thicker. They're almost too tight. I call it tight. Like it's hard to do certain moves. These handle really really well. And so this is the crushed. This isn't the double crushed, but it is the crushed stock, which a lot of people seem to be enjoying these days for sure.
Right.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Backing up a little bit with the Fox targets and you in general, I guess, have you, before getting into playing card design, because I know that's, its own world, have you ever had an interest in Magic, or did you kind of get into it because you're an artist first? Because let's be honest, like, whether you are a performer or a hobbyist, being a magician is kind of like being an artist as well.
Right.
And so did it have that did you feel naturally connected to it because of that, or are you still kind of staying away from the Magic side and focusing more on just the design side of things when it comes to the industry?
Yeah, actually, no. I am studying Magic a lot more now these days, especially because I work with the guys over at Lost Art Magic, Xavier and Eric, and we got a couple of other guys on the team that are really sharp. So it's forcing me back into Magic. So it's kind of come full circle. Like I said, I started out doing Magic when I was about 7 years old, grew into a design and illustration career, and then because of my love of playing cards, it came back around. And now I'm inundated with the Magic conventions, and I'm on all of the groups on Facebook and everything like that, and I'm learning coin magic, I'm learning card magic, stage and illusion stuff. I study the heck out of everything and always have, but I'm actually starting to practice it more and more so that I can perform more readily.
Nice. It looks like your wife has popped on as well. Looks like she's over on the old YouTube. I think I saw her on Facebook earlier. She said something about Origin, I think is next week. Is that right?
Yeah.
There you go.
She would know way better than I do. She definitely keeps us scheduled, and I just kind of go where she says.
Now, speaking of conventions, Lance, that's actually where I had a chance to meet you for the first time last year, was over at Magic Live right here in Las Vegas, which is coming up not too long from now. Will we be seeing you pop up there, or maybe any other conventions? I know that based on where you're at, I know Magi Fest is a pretty popular one. I'm pretty sure you try to make, but are conventions your thing? And honestly, from an outsider, I know you're into Magic, don't get me wrong, but what do you think of Magic conventions in general? I mean, here you are, you're a guy, you're a designer, you're chilling. And something funny, too, I wanted to bring up, when I saw Lance at the convention, Magic Live, it's not because he was going for the cool factor. You were wearing shades the whole time. And so if anyone knows Lance Miller because of the photos of you in shades, can you at least shed some light on why you wear shades indoors? Because I think it's something that it's funny, but it's like when we first met, you were like, "Look, I want you to know this is why I do that," and it's funny. So why not talk about it?
Sure, yeah, no. That particular time was because I had left my contacts at home, or not my contacts, my contact solution. So I had gotten to Vegas and was getting ready to go downstairs, and I was getting ready to put my contacts in, and I'm like, oh no, I'm not going to be able to see or anything, and I had to go and just do something to let myself be able to see. So I've got prescription sunglasses, so I just kind of was like, all right, screw it, I'm popping them on, I'm going downstairs and going to the convention. It made an impression, it helped, it worked.
Yeah.
It wasn't the point, but
Yeah.
it almost never is. So other than that, conventions was your question. Conventions in general.
Yeah.
My wife and I love conventions because we do the Origins Game Fair. We do another thing called Con on the Cob. It's a drinking convention with a gaming problem, as it's referred to.
Love it.
There's just a lot of camaraderie with other vendors, people who make their entire living doing artwork and then selling the products from that artwork.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been so blessed to meet some of the top publishers in the board game industry as well as the playing card industry. Working with Murphy's has been fantastic. And working with X and Eric and everybody over at Lost Art Magic. And yeah, no, I was reading a comment down here. Somebody said it's the white and blue dress again.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that.
But yeah, we love conventions. We love that environment, and there's so much that you can gain as an artist, as a magician, even from somebody who doesn't practice a lot of magic. Going to the convention, I'm sitting there with Andre Jick, and Andre is showing me how to do this table spin move with the cards that I wouldn't have gotten an opportunity to learn, just sitting at home going on to like the live magic streams and stuff like that. I mean, yeah, you can learn some of that stuff, but it's way better to go and meet these people. First off, realize they're real people behind the personas that they project on their Instagram and their YouTubes and all this other stuff. Xavier and I became fast friends because of that fact. And you and I now have as well, because we met in that situation first before anything else. It has a different feel to it. And so I would encourage a lot of these guys. We have a card collectors convention that you can come to, meet a lot of the designers. That's where we propagate. And, if you're looking to get into magic, go to the magic conventions. You will meet tons and tons of people ready to share all of their magic with you. Mm-hmm. And you'll have so many more opportunities to get further in the industry if you want to get in the industry. If not, it's still a fantastic place to just go and travel. A lot of times it opens up travel opportunity. But yeah, so hopefully that answers that question. I mean, kind of a very passionate thing for me, going to conventions and connecting.
Cool. Yeah, no, absolutely. And more specifically, back to the designing part of what you do, because it's cool that you actually talked about going to conventions with that type of stuff too. I would, it's funny. People don't think that art conventions exist. A bunch of magicians running around and doing tricks. But of course, there are going to be conventions for everyone's different industries that are out there. With design, a couple specific questions that people have had. One being time. Like, how long does it come with the territory? When it comes to the territory of designing cards, how much time does it take to go from concept to release? Because, and I'm sure it depends on the project. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
Specifically, because people, for the most part, I would say 90% of the people out there would not even know where to start. And we can get into some of the basics too when it comes to stuff like that if you want. But I guess how long would you say it takes to really do that? Because it is a labor of love at the end of the day, I'm sure.
Most of the backs of the cards that you see of mine that are out there, that you can Google them, they have about 85 hours in just the back alone.
Jeez, dude. All right.
The rest of the tuck box, the cards themselves, the court cards, all of that stuff, you're looking at about another 250 to 275 hours. So on average, I tell people one of my decks is about 350 to 450 hours worth of illustration alone.
Wow, that's crazy, dude. Definitely a labor of love.
But it's fun, when you do what you want for a living, it doesn't feel like work so much. It's more fun. You get to sit down and explore and create and bring people to your world. And, when I think about those amount of hours that I can sit down and just work on a design or drawing for a back of a card, I don't think of it in terms of how much time it took me. I think of how much fun I had creating it and the story that I unraveled while doing so, because a lot of times I don't start with a story. I start with the artwork and then let the story come to me. That's
cool. When it comes to your older decks, buddy Daniel over on Facebook saying, where can someone buy your older decks, such as Gargoyles or the Actuators? I know one of them you mentioned wasn't really available to the public, but if they do want to get their hands on some of your other decks, where could they find those?
Your best bet often is eBay.
Okay, cool.
Fortunately, or if you can somehow catch up with me at a convention, I usually have a very small private stock that I carry with me that I will sign. They're sold at way more than you would buy them on eBay, but it's because it's my last amount of stock, and I will hand sign it for you.
Cool.
So that increases the value.
When it comes to the price, let's get down to the cost, because people, they see, okay, I want to get this deck of cards printed, you have to get this many thousand made, whatever. Can you give the guys an idea of the cost that it takes to get a deck of cards done? And I know that sometimes when you work with other companies, the cost is, part of the deal or whatever, so sometimes the artists don't have to worry about that. But can you kind of give the guys an idea? And if it's not specific, maybe just something along the lines of it's not as bad as you think or whatever, but when it comes to the actual cost, because that has been a question pop up a lot too, is, to a lot of people it's this big intimidating thing like, oh my god, it's the US playing card company or the expert playing card company, oh my god, like I could never do that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Well, so that's kind of a double-edged sword.
Okay.
The more bells and whistles you put into the deck or the tuck box or anything like that, the more it's going to cost, naturally.
Okay.
So if you want to foil stamp it, if you want to have it hand-stamped with serial numbers like I did, you're talking a lot of cost. And it comes down to your final price point that you want for the product. So if you want your final product to be $10, that means your per unit cost has to be somewhere around $2 or $3 in order to make enough profit for it to actually be a viable venture. That's not often the case with these playing cards. We don't usually make that much money on them. A lot of people think, this company on Kickstarter did this $1 million backer project, and I'm going to go do that now. And they think that they can just print money with it. And what you don't realize is that most of the people on Kickstarter expect free shipping, and that's an incurred cost. You have the cost of the development of the art itself. So if you don't know how to do art, you have to hire an artist. That has a cost. You have to license that artwork or do work for hire. There's two options there.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, ballpark, you're looking at between about $18,000 to $25,000 for a decent release. At minimum, you usually have to run about 2,500 cards, and so you can do the math backwards on that.
Well, wait, you mean decks? You mean decks,
I'm sorry?
because you said 2,500 cards. You mean 2,500 decks, not
2,500 decks. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because that would be a lot more than 2,500 cards.
I mean units. Yeah.
Yeah.
I tend to speak in terms of units.
Yeah. Okay. And so that's something that people have definitely shifted to. The Kickstarter thing. It's become very, very popular now, I've noticed, where people go on and they get the things funded. As an artist, that must feel pretty empowering to know that things like that do exist now, but maybe you don't feel that way. How do you feel about the whole, Kickstarter world now that exists when it comes to playing cards specifically, I guess?
Yeah, it's kind of, again, a double-edged sword. I mean, it's great because it really closes the gap for those people who have a product, they're super passionate about it, they want to get it out to the world, and they just don't know how to fund it.
Yeah.
Kickstarter is great for that. What it's not great for is people expecting that it's a marketplace.
Yeah.
And they go on, they order from you, expecting to just have these cards in the mail. And so some of that has shifted over the past 6 or 7 years, but it's also become flooded because of that. And that's why you won't really see me on there very much, or if I am, it's usually as part of somebody else's product.
Right.
And they're the ones managing the Kickstarter. It's very nerve-wracking, I will tell you. Yeah. And my wife can attest to this, because we used to have to hand pack and ship every single deck of cards that was ordered from us. We didn't have distribution. There weren't a lot of options and things like that. So we were kind of at the pioneering stage of all of that. And what is nice about that is, though, it gave me the exposure that let Jason know who I was, and then that started my whole relationship, which eventually evolved into me working with Murphy's on multiple projects.
Cool. All right. Someone asked a question. I like this one. Over on Facebook, Daniel says, if someone purchased a deck or decks of Fox Targets and paid for shipping to and from, would you sign them?
I mean, sure, but you could also order them direct from me, because I have them available on my website right now for pre-order. Right. And they'll be available during the release. Yeah. And then you don't have to pay for any extra shipping.
There you go. Well said, sir. And that is important to note, actually. I'm glad you brought that up, because that is something I missed. The Fox Targets we are talking about, they are available right now on pre-order from whatever source you choose to go from. You can find your favorite dealer. You can go through Lance, whatever you want to do. But these are pre-order right now. The actual release date for these bad boys is actually on the 12th. So if you want to get your hands on some, you can pre-order them now so you don't miss out. Or you can wait until they are available actually for purchase on the 12th of June. So that is right around the corner. Want to make sure that was noted, because I forgot these aren't even officially available yet.
I keep forgetting that myself. But after 2.5 years of waiting, it's kind of like one of those just joyous occasions every time I get to actually share about them now. So no, that's cool, and that's something else that I'm glad you mentioned was the timeline on it, because while we've had the project in works for a while now, releases in the Magic world, not just specific to this deck of cards, this is something people have no idea about, take a long time. Things don't just happen. Like, people think, oh, it's just a trick. All I have to do is, here's the gimmick. Now I want this on the market. That doesn't mean that it's just going to come out. And I know that can be frustrating to people sometimes, but it's just that's just like going to the DMV and pulling a ticket and waiting in line for freaking 2 hours. There's really no way around it. It's going to happen. So a lot of people get kind of frustrated with it and go, oh, I thought this was going to be ready so quick. I mean, all good things take time, and it's so awesome to find. Because I know last year we were shooting some promo material for this deck of cards at Magic Live, and we were all, still trying to figure out when it was going to come down the pipe. But the wait is pretty much over now, so it's we knew it was going to come, we just didn't know when. So indeed,
things just take time. Oh, that's Alex. That's funny.
That's great. Yeah, no, that's true. It is.
Yeah.
This was such a labor of love that even the pips. I hand drew these pips. Those aren't just.
Oh wow. Okay.
Thing that you can find anywhere out there. I went back to vintage style decks of playing cards and drew inspiration from them, but I sat down and I hand drew every single one of those pips myself to make sure it was what I wanted, and then digitally remastered it, added it in, changed up the patterns on the layout themselves. These are meant to be unlike any other deck of card on the market, and yet still have such a classic enough feel that you can put them in anybody's hands and they can instantly do what they've always done with playing cards. And then there's no suspicions that arise with them about, oh, that's a Magic deck or anything like that.
No. Here's a big question for you, because I am old school as hell. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not of the generation where custom decks of cards were a very common thing at all. I don't even think they existed when I was first getting into this stuff 30 years ago. When it comes to performing Magic, and this is just a question I get asked, so I'm going to ask you, what are your thoughts on using custom cards when it comes to the real people, the lay people? Because you were just talking about, cards not creating any suspicion, any red flags popping up. But what are your thoughts when it comes to performing with decks of cards that don't look like the cards everyone else uses, which are pretty much the bicycle playing cards that have been around forever? What are your thoughts on that stuff?
Thankfully, I've kind of been at the forefront of a lot of that. So about 7 years ago, when we first started engaging in doing custom card designs, there was only about me and three other people that were doing it. And we were catching a lot of flack about our decks not looking like standard playing cards. In fact, the United States Playing Card Company didn't know what to make of my bicycle actuators and sent me back to the drawing board on the court card several times, because they wanted it to have a certain look, but they didn't want it to have so close of a look to their court cards that it would confuse people. You got to respect their intellectual property. Well, during that whole process, I encountered a lot of people that were pretty much nonchalant. I would hand them my deck of cards and be like, "Yeah, this is my artwork as a deck of cards, and sure, let me show you a magic effect." And I had a magic effect built right into it that nobody caught.
That's cool.
And beyond that, over the last 7 years, we've seen a huge sway to now you're seeing a lot of these products in Barnes and Nobles, you're seeing them in Target, you're seeing them in Walmart, you're seeing way more custom decks hit the mainstream. And so when consumers are or lay people are approached with a new custom deck of cards and you're doing a magic effect for them, they're not really considering it as they used to, of like, oh, this isn't a red or blue bicycle. Okay. Can't possibly believe that's not gimmicked in some way. They don't even know that word. And so you forget as a magician, a lot of times lay people don't know what you know.
Yep.
And so we expect, oh, I'm going to get busted just because I have this deck of cards that's marked. Knox are a great example, right? They don't look like anything else, but they're marked. Mm-hmm. And you know it, and I know it, and other magicians know it, but the lay people wouldn't have even for a second thought of that because it's just a solid color.
Right. I like it. I'm glad I thought to ask that, because as a designer, design is very personal. It's a very personal thing, of course. Yeah. And so I do think that sometimes as magicians we tend to run away a little bit. We tend to run when we're not being chased, as the old saying goes, when it comes to using certain things. Oh, maybe they're going to think it's a trick deck or whatever. But I like that you mentioned that places like Barnes & Noble and even Walmart now, they sell a lot more than just the old bicycle standard cards. So, that's a really cool thing to hear from you. And, it's an interesting world now that we live in, because it's almost like, I mentioned this, I think it was on Instagram earlier when I was chatting with people. It's almost like decks of cards to people. I'm holding up the Revolution deck now too. These things are almost like, when it comes to girls, and I know we have some female magicians out there too, don't get me wrong, but it's like decks of cards are like girls in their shoes or their purses. It's like become such an accessory now that's something I still have a hard time wrapping my head around.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, for me, and I'll be honest here, my very first deck of cards that I ever did, it was selfish. It was a selfish endeavor. I wanted to have my own deck of cards that represented who I was as an artist and a magician, and I wanted to go out there and just wow people with it. What I ended up finding out was that there was a market for people who wanted something that was different than everything else. They wanted something that had some care and thought put into it, that would also reflect their personal style. And my first projects were a little bit more goth looking and appealed to that whole, edgy magician look. Mm-hmm. And for me, it made sense. A lot of other people, when they encounter these, they don't ask you, oh, were you thinking of a specific market when you created these? Because I tend to just create artwork, put it out there, ask for feedback, and then modify it based on that feedback.
Cool. I dig that. And then you mentioned something about you went through like a goth kind of phase. You said that was kind of where your head was at for a while. Now where you are, what type of illustration or design speaks to you? Like if you had to name maybe some of your favorite decks that you haven't designed, like maybe not to name a specific deck, but like what's the type of style that someone like you likes? Because again, as a designer, I'm curious to know what kind of speaks to you when it comes to playing cards.
Yeah, I mean, I still like something that has that classic appeal, but
Mm-hmm.
has a modern feel.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I mean by that is something that has more design elements in it. It has, because those guys used to sit and hand chisel
Hmm.
their designs into printing plates, and then they would flip those printing plates upside down, and that would be how the cards were created. And so I, as an artist, like to harken back to that and really, as much as I can, try and be traditional with my design elements. And a lot of times, if there's a flaw in my design, I'll let it live. Um, these you won't find it because Jason was a stickler. That doesn't mean I didn't try. um, but I like something that's a combination of sleek and modern, and then, could be a classic
Mm-hmm.
look and feel as well. And it's a slight juxtaposition, but I just really feel like I want something that speaks to people when I put it in their hands, instead of, oh yeah, that's just a design that somebody could have gotten on Zazzle or any other place, or a clip art. Or that's the worst thing that I can imagine, is that somebody thinks that I used clip art in anything.
Oh man, yeah, especially as a designer. Good God, that's terrible.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's also a compliment when people look at that and they're like, "Oh man, that's really nice. Did you use clip art?" Because clip art has that specific, look and feel
All right.
of just quality and precision. So
Okay. We had a nice comment. Speaking of you used a key word there, which was, I think, timeless. Our friends over at and forgive me guys if I pronounce this wrong, on YouTube, these guys are the Moravians Magic Shop. In regards to the Fox Targets, they say, these are a timeless and classic design. We love them. Well done, Lance. So,
thank you.
it's nice that someone that, people out there that run a magic shop and carry a lot of different things, see the love, or they give some love for something that they can see has value when it comes to the design. These are really, really nice. I want to ask you something too, because you mentioned Jason Brumbelow, and I had this question, I think it was yesterday, and I didn't even think about it until I looked at it later. Did you or Jason bring any influence from the Banshees? Because someone mentioned even the tuck. I don't know if it's the line, the strip on the front, but was there any affiliation with the Banshees? Was there a nod to it? Anything like that? Because that was something I looked at after someone said that, and I'm like, wait a second, that's actually a good point. So
Yeah. So actually, if you look at, I think it's the Queen of Hearts.
okay.
There's a nod to the run deck in here.
Oh.
And that's because I was helping Jason back when the run deck was being concepted.
Mm-hmm.
We went through a lot of package concepts and things like that, and so it was a nod to my work with that. And the Banshees, they were already done, but Jason was throwing them out to me to say, "Hey, what do you think about this that we could change here?" And I was like, you know what? I think that's fantastic, but what if we brought it over into this other project that we're working on? So,
Okay.
so yes, good catch. We totally were going for a consistent look and feel for multiple products that were being released during that time frame.
Got it. Can you give me? I'm holding the Queen of Hearts and I'm holding it up now to the screen too. Can you give me what the nod is to the run deck?
I think it's the Queen of Hearts. Give me just a second.
Okay. Yeah, because I would love to know that as well. So that's always fun to me, guy. While he's looking for that, it's always fun to me. I always wonder when I look through a deck, like there's got to be like hidden little Easter egg type things in decks of cards that you would never know about.
Yeah, well, I had dropped like 20 of my cards, so I'm thinking the Queen was in it. Yeah, it is on the Queen. In the top left corner, you can see the icon from the Joker of the run deck.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
See the little knife stabbing through the heart?
I do. I'll hold it up too. Yeah. That is awesome. Yeah. Right. Oops. Wrong side. Yeah. Right there. right there. I'll try to get that in.
So
Yeah,
that
that's
that was
cool.
to mine and Jason's work on that project.
Do you have, and I don't expect you to tell me, but as a designer, do you have any other little hidden meaning things that are a nod to either maybe family or other magicians out there, or just things that you put in there that when you see just makes you smile because you're like, ha, they have no idea what that is.
Every single one of my projects, whether it's a custom illustration for even a client,
Okay.
or a board game, or the deck of cards, every single thing has a gift, is what I like to call it.
Gift.
A gift to my family and to the people who inspire me,
Okay, that's
to
cool.
the people who have worked with me and lifted me up, and just push me to reach for my limits and
Cool.
to go beyond them. Um, yeah, there's stuff hidden in everything, and if you haven't found it yet, you probably will now that you know to go looking for stuff.
All right. Is that a common thing with artists, is to kind of drop those little things in there with their designs and stuff? Like, or is that just something that, as magicians we do just as a nod? Like, in the design world, do people do that? Do they put stuff hidden in, design
Some
work and paintings and stuff?
Yeah, some people do and some people don't. The
Okay.
people who are more commercially inclined, um, they tend to just do the work they're assigned, pass it off,
Wow.
it goes. There are other people who, they know that this is going to be something that's seen down the road. Um, I know, for instance, that 50 years from now, somebody's going to pick up a deck of my actuators and look, and they're going to see a picture of my wife. They're going to see a picture of my little sister. There are two other females that I actually chose to showcase in that as well, and one is my mentor's daughter, and another is another young lady who uh, built her whole artwork around the steampunk aesthetic. So I wanted to kind of glorify them in a special way that may not be as readily understandable to everybody else, but they know it's there, and I know it's there.
That's cool. There's something else I want to mention briefly, because I think it's important to note. You and I talked about this when we were chatting a little while back, and you were actually about to head off to do something. You are involved in your community in some really cool stuff. I wouldn't call it outreach, but some really cool stuff within the school system when it comes to artists and kind of bringing that type of mentality into school, but also enhancing and helping the artist, because we've all heard the expression a starving artist. But I like what you've done to involve yourself with the youth to try to help set them up for success. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I'm sure there are, as magicians, again, we're all kind of artists in our own way, performance artists.
Sure.
But could you, give us a little glimpse into the world where you're actually trying to help other artists too, even if it's at the education level? It's good stuff you're doing, so I think it's worth noting for sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess for a basic start, I actually mentor about 15 to 20 different individuals at any given time, ranging in age from about 12 on up to now 29. I have a young Padawan. We call him. It started with us. We can't use the word apprentice legally, so we call him a Padawan. But I see people with a desire to create art, first off, and then I see their hunger to want to understand how to make it a living. And I just come alongside them and I say, hey, maybe think of things this way, maybe think of things that way, provide them direction that nobody provided me. I kind of had to dig and scrape at walls to get to where I am. And thankfully, so many people have just come out of the woodworks and really helped lift me up, like I said. So anyway, beyond that, the school system, I am part of a business advisory council for the digital arts and design program for a local school called Diamond Oaks. And it's a career campus, and it's where these kids go to learn graphic design, multimedia, and animation, and I think they just added a video game track. But they didn't have an entrepreneurial aspect of it. They didn't have a traditional art aspect of it because it had all transitioned to digital. So a mutual friend introduced me to the teacher of this program, and said, hey, look, these kids would love to meet you. I went in once, fell in love with the program, fell in love with the kids, was like, you know what, I'll do anything I can. So I've been there now 3 years. I go in on a regular basis, teach everything from basic drawing principles to I do an entrepreneurial track starter at the beginning of each year to teach even juniors, like, hey, you can make money now with your artwork if you just learn how to think of it the right way.
Right.
And I do everything I can really to empower people to reach for the dream that I was told I couldn't have.
Right.
The entirety of my youth and even up into my high school career, I was told, hey, don't bother trying to succeed. You're just going to be a farmer like your dad. And man, that was painful to fight against.
I bet it was, dude. Yeah.
And a lot of these kids are told the same thing. I talk to them on a regular basis, and they're like, yeah, nobody really cares about what I want. They just care that I go here, or I go to college, or I do this, or I do that. And I'm like, well, who cares about that? What do you want to do? What inspires you?
Right.
Start there, and I can show you how to make that a living. And so finally, beyond that, I'm actually writing a book called Entrepreneurship for Artists, where I've created a system that I help you understand an entire track system, starting from just the inspiration of wanting to be a creative for a living and how to put it all into practice.
So let's take some of that you're talking about, which I admire a lot, for the record. I mean, here you are, someone that's found a way to do something that you love for a living, and you're trying to share that experience, that advice with other people that are wanting to pretty much be where you are and do what you do. Could you try to maybe spin some of that in a way, because I think with magicians as well, because this is, magicians are watching this as well, that it's not just enough to put all your eggs in a basket when it comes to just wanting to be a magician and a performer, that it's called show business for a reason. And I've had a chance to talk to some very established people about that, and I would love to get your perspective on it too, because you are someone that's already doing that, just kind of in a different way. But I'm sure a lot of that does apply to magicians as well. So maybe shed some light or help some of the people out there that may not know what to do or aren't even sure if they could do that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it applies across the board to every aspect of life, really. I'm taking basic entrepreneurial just principles and guidelines, and because of how I learned to apply them to artwork, I can now help others find a lot more of their career, because not only did I learn the entrepreneurial aspect, I learned the personal life aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that it's harder to teach. It's harder to get people a mentality of, hey, you can go for what you want as long as you are dedicated, as long as you practice, because practice is everything. As a magician, as an artist, as a designer, if you don't grow, you'll get left behind. If you don't challenge yourself, you'll never know what you can truly create. And our minds are capable of such amazing things that if we really just step out of our own way, we could accomplish ridiculous things.
Yeah.
And so collaboration is a key point that I would like to bring up in that regard, is because you don't always have to do everything yourself.
Right. Well said.
Somebody out there who has walked the path before you. And so the single most important advice that I can give anyone is to find a mentor. Find someone who you look up to in the business, who is doing what it is you love to do, and then sit down and have a conversation with them. Figure out a way to take them to lunch. If they're so high up in the industry that you feel like, man, I just won't be able to get this person's time, I challenge you to try it anyway. You'd be surprised. A lot of times, they're just people. They want to live life like you and me. They want to be happy, and they love what they do. So if you have as much passion for the same thing as they do, why wouldn't they talk to you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I'll give you a brief, for example. 3 years ago, I reached out to Mark Stutzman. Mark Stutzman does all of the design work for the David Blaine decks. He's done countless movie posters, and actually, when I was in high school, he had done the Elvis stamp. And
wow.
I remember seeing this dude's artwork throughout my entire life, and I reached out to him and was like, hey, I'm a fellow playing card designer. I'm way new at this, but I would love to pick your brain. And man, what ensued was a great line of emails and a phone conversation and an eventual meeting this year at Magi Fest, and or was Magi Fest or Magic Live? I'm not sure which. It was one of the two, or maybe it's the 52 plus Joker convention. I go to like 3 different conventions as far as that goes. But if I hadn't taken that time, if I hadn't reached out and said, hey, I'd love to learn from you, I'd love to just share this bit of information with you, who knows what my design path would have taken? Who knows what my personal life would have taken? So reach out to people that you look up to. Find a mentor. Use that mentor to understand more about the industry that you want to learn, and then give back, not just to the mentor, but to other people, because you can take what you have and reach other people who are trying to reach your level. For every rung of the ladder, someone else is looking up.
I like that a lot, dude. That's very well said. Because while we're all at different levels, we're all, especially, as a magician's gathering here for the most part, we're all at different levels, but we all love the stuff, and that's what matters at the end of the day. And I love it that you've tried to plug yourself into the school system where you could be such an influence, where the people that need to hear that stuff, because it's one thing, again, to just try to go in and to be a creative artist, but it's another thing to actually be able to, look after yourself and live on that. And definitely the same does go for being a magician too. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting thing, but it is important to know that if you're willing to reach out, if you're willing to put in the work, that you can do that. And here's Lance sitting here right now, that he's surrounded literally by his own artwork behind him. We're all going to be holding his new deck of cards, which is pretty awesome. And it's just the start of many things. I'm sure you'll be seeing it from Lance Miller in the future. Is there anything specific about the deck that I haven't had a chance to mention yet, or that I didn't mention, that you want to make sure people know about? Because we are pretty much at the hour mark. I don't want to keep you a whole lot longer here, because I know that you've got other stuff going on. But do you have some specific things you want people to know about this deck? Because I know people say it a lot, but it is true. It's kind of like your baby. This is something you've worked on, you put time into, you have a lot of respect for, obviously. What's something you want people to know about? Or maybe there's not. Maybe we've covered everything. But I want to give you a chance to at least make sure that your voice is heard when it comes to things about this deck.
Yeah, that's a tough one, because, like I said, there's what I'll tell you is this: every single card has a story.
Okay, I like that.
Every single card has a single story. Each of the stories make a greater story, and I want to see if somebody can catch it. I want to challenge you guys to see if you can catch it.
You want to say something here?
I really do. I really
love
do.
it.
But
love it.
some things are better left to the discovery.
Yeah, you're right.
And that's the beautiful part. I gave so many clues. And it's not about me. And it's not about any individual in particular. It's actually about this deck. The entire deck is a family. I'll give you that.
All right. You're grimacing there a little bit. I think you're on the fence. You said enough to give people something to go chasing after. We'll put it like that. So this is something that I know people are going to enjoy. I also saw another nice comment. I was looking for the words there. Over on YouTube, the guys are saying, Moravian's Magic Shop saying, knowing that Lance is such a wise and level-headed guy makes his products more valuable in our opinion. We know that we're going to be receiving a well-thought-out product that wasn't rushed. And, I think that's something that's very important we could close on, is that take your time with stuff, guys. Whether it's you're working on magic or you want to release something or whatever, things don't just happen overnight. This has been a labor of love, at least within the Murphy's world, for about 2.5 years. I know Lance has probably had ideas or thoughts or has worked on some concepts he might have brought into this that go much further back than that. But you cannot
Yeah.
rush. You cannot rush inspiration. You cannot rush design in particular. I mean, I would think that would be one of the worst gigs. Would be a graphic design gig or a design gig where you have a freaking deadline to meet, and it's like, oh my god, how am I supposed to create under pressure? Like, that would suck. Um,
Yeah.
so
That's one of the biggest things that you have to overcome is working on someone else's time schedule.
yeah.
I will do this.
All right.
Aaron Payne asked on Facebook, what is the single most challenging thing that you've had to deal with as a designer?
Mhm.
And that's literally growing beyond my own ego, learning how to let go of my artwork into someone else's hands and it becoming their property. That is the single most challenging thing I've ever had to deal with is being able to just let go
Mhm.
and letting what it creates become what it is.
Yeah, I mean, you're having to kind of the whole thing where you put your hands in the air. You're like, okay, I'm done. I can't do anymore. I could, but what's the old saying? If you mess too much with something that's perfect already, you end up ruining it. So that's I don't know how you do this stuff. I mean, as someone that's a magician and has worked on creating different tricks and things for TV and for the magic market, it still boggles my mind how people like you were able to take a concept upstairs and to put it down on a piece of paper. And one last question for you when it comes to designing, I'm actually really curious about this. Technology has become so amazing with the things that we can do now. Do you find that to me, it's kind of like the same old thing where do you read a book or do you watch a DVD? With design, do you prefer pad and paper? Or do you prefer to use these new tablets that allow you to draw on the screen and stuff like that? That's something I'd love to know myself.
That right there is 65 hours of graphite drawing.
Graphite.
Graphite,
Wow.
pencil.
Wow. Good lord. So I'm assuming.
65 hours. I would much rather spend 65 hours doing that than sitting on a tablet.
Okay.
But I'll tell you this. Every tool has a purpose, and the more tools that you can master, the more things that you can do. There are some things that publishers will hire you for that require digital art. There are some that require traditional. You have to know how to navigate both in order to create what it is they're asking you for.
That's fair. That's very fair. Okay, that makes sense too. I mean, different tools do different things. So yeah, I mean, well said. But it's cool to hear you point instantly to your artwork. You're like, yeah. Because for me, people ask that about learning magic, and I always say straight away, it's books for me. It's just I can't learn the same way with the book than I can with the DVD. So yeah, well, it's cool. I'm glad to know that because you do different things than I do, which is able to actually draw. That's one of my challenges my whole life is not being able to draw at all. It looks like crap when I do it. So, but anyway, back to where we were with these guys. We are so excited to finally have the Fox targets out and for you guys to get your hands on them. And if you guys do get them and start doing those videos, make sure you let us know so we can start to share your content and all that fun stuff. I know Lance would love to see some pictures and some videos of you guys putting these into action too. Here's actually one last question, and this is it for real for me. Deck of cards, designer, do you have a favorite deck of cards? Not a deck, but favorite card in a deck of cards. Favorite card.
Do I have a... Oh.
Not just with the Fox targets, but in general, do you have a favorite card?
Usually it's the Jack of Hearts.
Usually, okay.
For me,
Okay.
as a designer, because
Okay.
it's fun to design.
Got it.
But my favorite card is the Queen of Spades because that's the card my wife chose to be commemorated as. So
That's cool.
that's my favorite.
All right, cool. Very cool. So Jack of Hearts traditionally though was before the wifey popped in there. Okay.
Before the waifu, as she likes to be referred to, yeah.
The ladies, yes. Love it. All right, Lance. Well, I'm gonna step back for a second, and the floor is yours for the next minute or so. Take as long as you want, but as I always like to do with the people that come on, because you were kind enough to come on and to answer some questions and talk about this, taking some time out of your day to do that. If people want to keep up with you post this show, whether it's online or in person, if you're going to be appearing in any events, where would the people be able to keep up with Mr. Lance Miller if they would like to?
Everywhere. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Google Plus. I'm on LinkedIn. I have massive networks on all of them. So wherever you like to connect, bring it. I love to connect. My Facebook lives open, so if you want to private message me, do so. That doesn't mean that I won't answer immediately or will answer immediately, but it does mean that I will get back to you.
Okay.
I'm always at conventions, and more specifically, I'm trying to be more consistent at Magic Live, Magi Fest, and the 52 Plus Joker convention. Those are the three that directly relate to both playing cards and Magic. Other than that, I do Origins Game Fair, which is a fantasy art and gaming convention. And I'm working towards Gen Con and a couple of the other larger conventions. And the thing I will say here is just thank you guys for loving my art, for loving my products, for allowing me to share my voice with you in art, as minimal as that voice is. Just thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, because without you guys, I have no purpose. And that's where those NDAs come in, because I was under 60 NDAs at once while I was working on this project, and I hit a stark and deep depression. And so that's why you're seeing this giant smile on my face, and I'm looking like a proud father, is because this is the first time I'm being able to publicly address this amazing work of art that I was blessed to be a part of. So thank you.
Oh, that's awesome, dude. And congrats. I mean, I know how it feels when a trick comes out. Like, I worked on tricks and stuff, and they hit the Magic market, and it's like that proud moment. So I'm so glad that we were able to help capture and celebrate some of that with you by having this chat with you today and giving guys a chance to really see the guy behind, literally, the guy behind the deck. I mean, that's pretty awesome, dude, to be able to connect with you and chat with you and get some insight into your world and how you tick and all that fun stuff. So congratulations, Lance. We're really happy not only to see these released to the community now, but also just to finally be able to have these out the door for you too, because I know it has been a little bit of a wait. So, but all good things happen when they're meant to. And this is. I also think that people, when they get these, are going to be really, really surprised. Not only with the way that they look, but more specifically the way that they handle. I really, really like the way that these cards handle. So you get the beauty.
So, maybe we'll have to use this on your deck project.
Yes, there is something I may or may not be working on. I haven't put much work into it, but yes, we will see. Yes, I haven't really pushed the ball forward on that very much, but that's what happens when life happens,
Oh, no worries.
Yeah. So, but so are you coming to Magic Live this summer? Because that is right here where I live, and it's happening in like 3 months now, or 3 or 4 months, but 3.
I believe I'm supposed to. I mean, as of right now, I believe I am. If anything changes, I'll let you know.
All right, you bringing the shades?
Oh yeah.
All right, so look for Lance Miller, the man in the shades, in the bar at night, and you can't miss him. Thank you, Lance, seriously, for your time and for all the amazing work that you've done. And you guys are just seeing the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Lance Miller design work. So thanks, Lance. Appreciate it, man.
Guys, I appreciate it.
All right, awesome. Well, I am now going to wrap this up, guys. I want to once again thank Lance for his time, and to all of you for joining me today to chat all about the brand new Fox Targets, and also to answer some of the questions that you have when it comes to playing card design. It's a very specific thing. A lot of people see it and think it's this bigger thing. It's a bigger thing than them. It's intimidating, and they can't do it. But the truth is, you just heard a lot of good insight from Lance. If you're just joining us live, you can watch the replay in a little bit. A lot of good insight shared here when it comes to getting into that world, how he got into it, which is a great little story, and then also how to plug yourself into it and to do it. And it's not easy, but if you put the work and time into it, it'll happen. And one day you may be holding your own deck of cards, just like he is now. I'm sure he's sitting over there. I see him on Skype. He's sitting over there smiling like crazy. He's staring at the cards. He's like, I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. Rightfully so, though, in all seriousness. Rightfully so. A labor of love. And you can tell that in all of Lance's work. All right, guys. Well, that's it for me. I am doing some really fun stuff around here. I'll be not live tomorrow, but I am doing an interview with someone you'll be seeing very soon very exciting product that I can't wait to tell you more about. So my first in-studio guest will be with me. It's that interview shortly. And then this Friday, I have a guest popping on with me too. Patrick Redford joining me to chat about some stuff too. Talking about his stack book, which is going to be pretty cool. So that's Friday, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern time. So if you're around this Friday, you can join us live for that. Again, we'll be on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. And Patrick has all sorts of fun work. You know, he's known for a lot of different things: minimalism, card work, and this stack is something that I'm sure a lot of you can be very interested in. It's got a lot of good accolades about it. So if you're interested in that kind of work, check us out this Friday. Again, that's noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern time. I'm Mr. Patrick Redford. All right, cool. Well, my name is Luke Dancy, your host, each and every week trying to bring you more and more live experiences, more and more fun stuff, and more importantly, trying to get those questions answered that you're looking for. Again, I do get asked a lot about playing cards, design, different details with cards, so it was great to finally have someone on, an expert in this field, to come on and to try to fill in some of those blanks that I'm not able to do for you, because I don't ever pretend to know everything. But I do try to bring on the people that do know those answers and try to get the answers that you're looking for. All right. So thanks to everyone that joined us today. And again, very special thank you to Mr. Lance Miller. We appreciate your time, sir, and all the hard work that you put into the Fox Target step. All right. That is it from me, my friends. Thanks for joining us today. We'll be back again soon. If you are watching over on Facebook, make sure to turn notifications on. That way when we do go live, you get notified, literally. And if you are watching us over on YouTube, thanks for joining us today. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's how you get notified as well when we push live on YouTube. All right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll catch you next time. I am out of here.